Hello, welcome to Tuesday Tidbits at the Putnam County Library. My name is Ben Goff. I'm with the Putnam County Extension Service, and today we'll be talking about a few ways to help winterize your home to save on your heating bill. So bear with me. This is my first Facebook Live, so I'm still figuring it out as I go. Um, as any homeowner knows, a heating bill can really eat up your budget, especially in the winter months, particularly um, if you haven't had a chance to prepare your house for the winter. Now, ideally, you want to begin winterizing your home right around fall before temperatures really drop. But today, I want to give you kind of three different things you might think about that you can do right now to kind of think about to help reduce your cost. The first is adjust your thermostats. The Department of Energy has done some research, and they've determined that just lowering your temperature in the house by 1 degree will save about, for every 1 degree you lower the temperature in your house, will save your annual heating cost by 1%. So in other words, drop it bring it down 2 degrees more than you would, you save about 2%. So starting out, the easiest thing to do is, on your thermostat, find the lowest temperature that you're actually comfortable with, or that everyone in the household is comfortable with. I know that's kind of a loaded bit of advice, because I know a lot of arguments do begin with where thermostat's set out, but try to find something that's comfortable for everybody. The second thing you can do is actually get a programmable thermostat. They're relatively cheap and easy to install. Low end's probably going to cost you about $20, and there's some real ones that go on your smartphone are probably closer to $80 to $100. The nice thing about those is that you can program them to actually lower that temperature when you're gone for school or work or whatever it be, and have it programmed to come back up and be at the comfortable temperature before you actually return. Um, you know, when heating costs, that's nice. You could easily do that by turn down the thermostat before you leave for the day, but it's nice to come back into a comfortable home too. So again, it's relatively easy to do. The second thing, it kind of goes without saying, is try to find ways to keep the heat in, keep the cold out. I'm sure everybody knows window seals. Check windows and door frames. Check both the inside and outside for drafts, small cracks where that air is actually going to cool in. If you can feel cold air coming in, there's a good chance that hot air is also going to go out. So check both of those really good. If there are cracks, you can use seal or caulking, some kind of sealant to fill those up. Weather stripping is another good source option for that. Relatively cheap, just takes a few minutes to do. All it takes is just be on the look for those. One thing that kind of goes over noticed is that the weather stripping that comes on the bottom of doors, exterior doors, many times people don't really realize until it's kind of too late that actually wears out, especially if you have doors open a lot with kids. They kind of wear out and break. Take a good look at those. If they are break, they do actually make replacements. They're relatively simple. You just slide them over top the bottom of the door, screw them in. Again, just takes minutes and relatively cheap. Most time, $5 to $10 for those. If you have single pane windows, they're relatively inefficient because a lot of that heat is actually lost through that piece of glass. They actually transfer a lot of energy out, let cold air in. If you have those, you at some point down the line, you may think about replacing those with something more efficient. There's a lot of, I think, programs available to help to have incentives for replacing those. But if you do have it in the meantime, something you can do other than weather stripping is to get some big thermal curtains, or just some big heavy curtains, and close those. Those kind of act as insulation to kind of help keep that cold air from coming into the house and that hot air from escaping. If you don't have that, just a blanket will do. Putting a blanket up there, again, acts as a kind of a barrier and helps insulate that area. If you have double and triple pane windows, you probably don't need to worry about them too much. Double pane, most time, the numbers I've seen are about 10% of the energy is lost through that window, which is a little high, but not too bad. Whereas triple pane, it's about 3%. If you have those, it's kind of use your best judgment. It still wouldn't hurt to have that if you think you can do that. If you feel a lot of cold air when you get in front of that window, that's probably a good sign. You may consider that. Another option, they actually make kits. They're almost like the kits actually almost are like for shrink wrapping your window. What it is, it's just like a little piece of plastic that goes around the window with tape, and then you take a hair dryer and you put it on there, and it seals it, and basically acts as another pane. So you can do that. Those are all good options to help kind of reduce those. Another thing you might do if you have a ceiling fan, that is actually a good way to kind of keep some of the hot air down closer to you, especially if you're in a house that has really high ceilings. So make sure that you want the fan to be going clockwise, and so look and make sure the blades are spinning in a clockwise direction. What that does is recirculate the hot air down. As we all know, hot air rises, so a lot of the air gets trapped up into there. It's relatively simple to do too. Most fans, you just have a little switch you just slide. It's either on top of the motor or the bottom of the motor, depending on the model. All you do is switch those over, and you should be doing that. So number 3, I think is a relatively simple one to do, as properly maintaining your HVAC system and sometimes your other appliances. Something as easy as changing the air filter monthly can save anywhere from 5 to 15% of your annual heating cost, depending on the unit, how old it is. What happens when that air filter gets clogged, that unit has to work harder to produce the same amount of energy. So it's using a lot more energy to produce the same amount of heat, in other words. So, it happens, and that, keeping it clean helps reduce those costs, but it also helps extend the life of that unit. No one wants to get in the wintertime and have the motor burn out on those. Even if you have a relatively clean house, it's amazing how much dust actually gets in those filters, especially if you have kids or pets. Another thing you might consider is also flushing out your water heater. I think a lot of times people kind of overlook this one, but what happens, that cylinder still is metal, and so sometimes you get a little bit of rust sediment at the bottom of those. And what happens is it's kind of the same thing with the air filters in the furnace. It causes that unit to work harder to heat that water up. And simply just flushing those out is a good way to kind of improve the efficiency of those water heaters. Relatively simple to do. The unit you see on the very bottom of the tank, there should be a spigot or a nozzle. All you do is just open that up, let the water flush out of there until it stops being rust colored or orange colored, and that's simple as I could do. Usually about once a year should be sufficient for those. So lastly, the last thing, it won't necessarily save you much money on your energy cost, but it's always good to have a plan. Be prepared for any kind of power outage or heat outage. Some things to think about: if you have a generator, get it up beforehand. Make sure it runs. Make sure it's topped off on gas and oil. Make sure you got a few extra cans of gas in case you can't get out. Many people wait to the last minute. I myself have done that, unfortunately, in my younger years, and you get stuck. But so having that, have a source of supplies, something just as small as flashlights or blankets will help. Have them in an area where you know where they're at. There's nothing worse than stumbling around in the middle of the night trying to find a flashlight. So make sure you have those. If you have an additional source of heat, think about that. Electric heater, you can plug into a generator. If you do use those, make sure the cord is large enough for that amperage. Most time a 12 gauge that's a little bit probably heavier duty, should hold up to just about anything. Make sure you have those, take that in consideration, how you're going to run those cords in and out of the house if you need to. Gas heaters are nice, especially ventless gas heaters, but with any type of gas heater, you're still running the issue of needing proper ventilation. Even those ventless ones can still put off some carbon dioxide, and so you really need to think about ventilation of the room if you have one installed. Most time the manual will tell you the required cubic feet requirement and anything about how large a room it needs. Never use a kerosene heater inside the house. Unfortunately, you always hear incidences where people do that, and sometimes that leads to health issues or suffocation. Unfortunately, there's a lot more of those gases that come off those kerosene heaters. So if you're going to use one, make sure you use it outside. And lastly, if your water lines aren't wrapped, Ideally you would want to wrap them somehow, especially if they're exposed, to keep them from freezing. But if it's a last minute thing, the power goes out and heat goes out, one thing you can do is just let the faucet drip. What that does, when water freezes, forms ice, it expands. And so, but just having a slow drip helps, it helps release some of that pressure in those lines. So that can also keep that from that. So, with that, I'm trying to look. Again, bear with me. This is my first Facebook Live. I see Katie Farrell said hi. Hi, Katie. I'm glad to do this. I don't see any questions. So, I'm at the Putnam County Extension Office. Feel free to give us a call. If there's anything we can do. I'm also actually split between Mason County. I'm actually at the Mason County office today. So, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us there. So, with that, thank you all. Is there any questions? All right. Thank you all and have a good day.